and welcome to this second part of our study on the Lord's Prayer. If you missed the first session, there's a link in the description below and you can get the whole series in order. So last time we looked at the very first word, that is our Father, not my Father, and you can go and check out that video, and then this video follows on. So we haven't got very far, so we're coming to the second word today. And I wanted to do it this way rather than do the phrase our Father together, because I think both words contain a lot of meaning, and the word Father can contain issues for some people. So for a lot of us, like myself, I had a good father, I've got good memories of him, so it's not difficult for me to pray our Father. But there are people who either didn't know their father was absent. I know someone whose father died between him being conceived and him being born, so he never met his father. I know the people whose father died young. And then I want to think a little bit also about people like my 8 to 9-year-old friend Jean. It's not a real name. And I was chatting to her, and she was talking about how her father was violent and physically abusive to her mother, and also to Jean herself as a child. And so the word father for Jean just conjures up this angry, violent man, and that's not a good image of God that we want to have. So she was telling me she's kind of kept it to herself, but she's always thought of God in female terms, loving, caring, protecting, because that's what her mother did. That was the image of the parent, the good image of the parent that she had as a child was her mother. Actually, listening to Jean, it made me think, because I've often thought of God as quite silent, a bit distant, has his moments when he feels close, but a lot of the time feels distant and silent. I've seen God in that way because my father was, he was a bit distant and silent, and lots of good times, but I didn't ever feel close to him like I did to my mum. It was mainly because our dad worked shift work, and so he did earlys, lates and nights. So him being around was sort of a movable feast. And then sometimes, like if he was working nights, he would work through the night, and then when we were at home in the daytime, he'd be asleep in bed. So even when he was home, you didn't always see him. I only learned after my dad died, through kind of doing the family history stuff, that his dad had died when my dad was 9 years old. So he was kind of, my dad was sort of born into the Great Depression, and then his dad died when he was 9. When he was a teenager, World War II broke out, and he did do some service in the army that he never spoke about. And I just imagine now, looking back, he was probably silent because he was probably had trauma and may have even had PTSD and all sorts of other things. But you can't go through all that stuff, living through a world war and your dad's being taken away when you're 9. I don't think you go through that and not suffer trauma. And one of the results of that, especially with introverts, is just being distant and silent. So I didn't know any of that at the time. My dad was a bit of a joker, so I've inherited the dad jokes. But it's interesting that our image of God can often be sort of connected or influenced by the experience we had with our own father or lack thereof. Now it's clear in the Gospels that Jesus taught his disciples to pray to our Father, and he spoke about him and the Father being one, so that's the picture that he used. But we mustn't think of God in such human terms, really. In Numbers 23:19 it says God is not a man. And so the scriptures are trying to use limited, finite words to describe the indescribable, basically. And so let's not put a guilt trip on people who struggle to use the word Father where God's concerned, because some of us can't, and God meets us where we are. We've got to be careful about taking descriptions of God in the Bible too literally, because in Psalm 91 verse 4 it says that God will cover us with his feathers, and under his wings will find protection. So is God a bird or a chicken or something? Why has God got feathers? In Isaiah chapter 49, God uses the image of a mother. And so there are all sorts of images in the Bible about who God is, and we need to just find the name or the title that connects us with God and not get bogged down on using a term that is really problematic for us. St. John tells us that God is love, and in brief glimpses here and there we encounter the love of God, and it's a love that's out of this world, literally. And when writing to the Corinthians, Paul explains that we see God through a glass darkly, or a poor reflection in a mirror. And he compares with that when we see God face to face. But now in this world, it's, we're in a bit of a fog to describe God with the limited finite words of English or whatever our language is. So what for you conjures up positive images of parenting? And maybe you should focus on that image when you come to pray to God and when you come to pray the Lord's Prayer. And I know for those of us who've been in the faith a long time, when people refer to God as she, when I've read some books, I've seen that it does initially, it sort of jars a bit or grates, but that's just because we've not had those issues to deal with, and the writer or the speaker has. And it's interesting, the story of Moses and the burning bush, when Moses is sent to Pharaoh, he wants some credentials, and he wants to know who it is. What is God's name? Who is the God that's sending him to do this thing? And God comes up with this strange thing. He says, tell them I am sent you. So the phrase I am is the name of God, and it's an unfinished sentence. And it almost implies that God is. Well, God is what? Well, God is whatever you need him to be. If the word Father is one that troubles you, try one of the other names of God. Counselor, Friend, Mighty God, Mother, Eternal God, Prince of Peace, Lover, Abba, Provider, Healer, All-Sufficient One, the Alpha and Omega, Shalom, I am. Thanks for joining me today. I hope that's given you something to think about. Do leave your thoughts in the comments below if you want to, and let's share together as we go through the Lord's Prayer. Do join me next time for part 3, when we were looking at the next phrase, in heaven, our Father in heaven. Please don't forget to hit the red subscribe button and click the little bell icon. Do give us a thumbs up on YouTube, and I'll see you next time.